Welcome to the Wilshire Gun Podcast.
April's here already. Here we go. All right, let's jump right into it. We'll start with the short stuff first. Training. Training's up on the calendar. All the normal stuff's there. The new handgunners, defensive rifle. Let's see what else. Pepper spray, SDAs, ladies, intro, all your favorites are up there, which a lot of you guys haven't come and taken classes, so how would you know they're your favorites? WilshireGun.com/training. Come check those out. Super awesome. We look forward to seeing you there. Second thing we got up, retail stuff. April's a big month. I know I always say that. It seems like April's a big month, March is a big month, blah, blah. But Sig Days, I think I announced it last month. It's coming. Hard date for that is 27th, April 27th, which should be a Saturday. So make sure you show up for that because there are awesome things. You can probably see it over here. We're going to cover, there's giveaways, there's discounts. Tanner's going to be here, guns, demos, all kinds of cool stuff. Sig Days is always a good time. If you're, in the market for that kind of stuff, that's definitely the time to get it. What else I got here on my list? Sales. Sig Day sales are going to go from the 27th to the 30th. So if you can't make it on Saturday, which I hope you do, a couple days after, you're still good. Now, there's a raffle. Basically, you show up on Saturday, you get an entry, free entry. Past that, any cent or $5 for any SIG ammo purchase, $10 for every $100 spent on SIG products. Then you get what else on here? Combos, Magpool, Viridian optics, all on sale. FN rifles, shotguns, clearance wall stuff. If you buy a pistol and a holster, you get 10% off both. Buy a pistol holster ammo, get 15% off all. Let's see. Rifle and pistol of the month. For this month, we're doing PSA and DPMS again because I shortchanged you guys last month. We announced them, and then they didn't end up showing up till like halfway through, even though we had, basically the end of February ship dates. This is what it is, so we're extending that out. Pistol and rifle of the month, DPS, PSA, all the good stuff there. And those are going to be in stock. So those are here. We have a bunch of stuff, here. Come check them out. Oh, last thing. Also, PID lights. You guys have seen these on the podcast before. We got ways to get these for free. Essentially, that is select pistol purchases, and I believe the select pistol is optics cut VP9s. So HKs get you a free Holosun light, and this is not a bad light. Honestly, I would open it and go through it, but I don't want to waste your time looking at a light that you can come in here and see. It would do you much more justice to come check it out than me just like holding it up and being like, ooh, flashlight. So that's a lot of the April sales. Sales begin on April 2nd. And as always, if you purchase a rifle or a pistol from us, you will get free range time and or a private lesson. That covers the April sales stuff. I'm really, really cutting those short. There is a lot more on here. These sales sheets are available down at the front. So come check those out. Now, Sig Day giveaway. What am I giving away? 300 Blackout. This is the Sig MCX Rattler in 300 Blackout. It's a little, I think, 4 or 5 inch barrel. It's a pistol. They're freaking sweet. These are like $2,200, $2,300. So somebody's taking this one home. There's other giveaway stuff too, but this is grand prize kind of stuff. So come down on Sig Days, come check it out. Come, pick up Sig stuff. come when somebody's going to get a gun, then they're going to get my cheesy phone call that I always do and get to come get their gun. So, pretty cool. Really got through a lot of the admin stuff real quick, which I'm happy about because I actually have podcast-esque material for you guys. Last week we did we did what I called my PSA, my public service announcement versus, social media and clickbait kind of stuff. This one though, however, I got reached out to and said, "Hey, I have some questions. Would you answer them on the podcast?" Which is really actually kind of cool. Nobody's ever, done it. I'm more than happy to answer them. So if in the future, if you have questions, message us on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, direct it towards podcast question, and it gets funneled up to me, and we go through them and film them. So, gentleman named Brian sent 2 questions that are each 2 parts. So we're going to go through them, and we'll spend a majority of this episode kind of going through this. Now, before we get into questions, I've already read the questions, so I know what they are. You have to take with a grain of salt. I am not all-knowing. My word is not gospel. A lot of this is opinionated, and it is, my takes on it being a gun store employee and having a little bit more access to manufacture different stuff like that. But science, data, all those numbers, I'm sure I'm going to generalize that, and you have to take it that way. Because I'm going to do this more on less on a scientific and more on a personal stance, right? So, Brian asked, I'm looking at a 300 Blackout PDW, and I have been considering a 7.5 or a 10.5 or 10.5 barrel, so 7.5 inch barrel or a 10.5 inch barrel. I'm leaning towards 7.5. Either one suppressing, and so any pros or cons to go with a 7 versus a 10. So essentially, he's looking at getting a 300 Blackout PDW style gun, short barrels. What should you do, longer or shorter? So I'll start that with 300 Blackout is not the same. Where most people will get tripped up on that is 300 Blackout uses a 5.56 casing, fires a 30 caliber bullet. It was originally designed to be fired from shorter guns. They were looking for external ballistics to basically create smaller gun packages, different stuff like that. Can you shoot it out of a 16? Yes. Can you shoot it out of a 4-inch barrel like this one? Yes. Which one is better? Realistically, I think, from what I've heard, the optimal barrel length for 300 Blackout is 9 inches. That's where they call, full powder burn. That's where you're getting maximum velocity and other things like that. If you have a longer barrel, is it possible to gain more velocity? Yes, but you're going to start seeing diminishing returns because the friction in the barrel will actually start slowing the round. So as far as the difference in 7.5 and 10.5, you're going to be relatively negligible difference-wise. My big ask on that, or what I would ask back if we were having a conversation, would be, what is the purpose of the gun? Now, he kind of described it as a PDW, so personal defense weapon, be it home defense gun, truck gun, mess around gun, blah blah blah. Shooting a little bitty short barrel like that, you're not going to get a lot of range out of it. So that is something to take into account. Now, really, if it was me and I was going to build a PDW, the purpose of PDWs are small compact guns. So I would say go with the 7.5. While you are technically below the efficiency like cutoff of 300 blackout of 9 inches, it's the same thing as 5.56 really wants to be fired out of an 18 or 20 inch barrel, yet there's dudes firing it out of 10.5s. Is it as efficient? No. Is it still efficient enough? Yes. When you start looking at suppressors as well, obviously if I can shorten the barrel, again, I want to keep the gun as compact as possible. So if it was up to me, I would do 7.5. That's, the round was made to be fired through, small barrels, SBR length barrels, different, shorter barrels. So the answer to your first part, Brian, I would say do the 7.5, unless you have a specific reason you want to do the 10.5. Would you consider subsonic ammo sufficient? Seems debatable. Subsonic ammo for 300 blackout. So for those who don't know, 300 blackout really likes to be suppressed. It is a great suppressor host because it has the capability to fire subsonic ammo. So subsonic, supersonic, what does a suppressor actually contain? It contains all the gas, the hot expanding gas, blah, blah, blah. But if you're firing a supersonic round, you're still going to get a supersonic crack. That's why suppressors, like most movies and other stuff, don't get it correct, because suppressors are still loud. They're just not as loud, right? But when you take the supersonic crack out of it, it gets dramatically quieter, closer to what you would see in the movies or hear in the movies potentially. And 300 blackout is a very quiet round when suppressed and firing subsonic. So what he's asking, so subsonic bullets are traveling below, I think it's 1,050. It's somewhere right in there, basically 1,000 feet per second, ish, is roughly the supersonic threshold. You can buy 300 blackout in supersonic or subsonic configurations. The supersonic will usually be like 125 grain projectile, so a much lighter projectile, where a subsonic projectile will be a 220, and therefore slowing the projectile down enough to become subsonic. Is it efficient? Again, depends on what you're doing. Efficient for hitting targets? Yes. Is it as efficient for creating wound channels and devastating soft tissue? No. Is it still efficient enough? Yes. So it's a trade of you can do both. And that's what I tell a lot of people. You can fire both supers and subs through a 300 blackout. If I had my choice, I would fire the supers for any kind of hunting, personal defense capabilities, other stuff like that. Will a subsonic do it? Yes. Will it do it as well? No. So, again, it's a trade-off. Now, the one kicker I will also tell you is generally you will have zeroing differences with supers and subs. So if you zero with supersonic rounds and then shoot subsonic rounds, you're going to have drop off because the round's not traveling as fast. So you will basically have to, your impacts will be lower. I think that's right. Lower than where you're aiming with, or actually it may be higher depending on your distance. They will fall off faster. But where you're aiming for supers, it'll deviate from your point of aim. And then vice versa. If you zero with super or subsonics, your point of aim on supers will be different. So that's important note. Whichever one you would go with, just know that the other one will it'll act the same. It's just you can't shoot both with the same zero. But long story, longer. If I was going to have to pick one or the other, if it was my only gun and that's all I had, would be supers. If it's a fun gun for, fun purposes and I just want something super quiet, get subs. So that hopefully that answers that first one of those two parts. Second question he asks, I was debating between Sig Rose options and thinking potentially pros and cons of either. Is the 380 sufficient for defense, and would having a 380 allow for easier follow-up shots? So Sig came out with the Rose program, the Rose platform. Basically, it's an all-encompassing gun, holster, lockbox, all this other good stuff. It's a great deal. Primarily marketed towards women. It doesn't mean a man can't, purchase it and use it. But generally, it's for women. Generally, it's marketed towards women. So they make it in 380 and 9mm. They make a couple different configurations of it. And the big deal there, what you were asking, right, is 380, would I send my wife out in the world with a 380? Is it sufficient enough to protect her? And truthfully, that kind of devolves back into the age-old debate of, stopping power and all this other stuff. And stopping power, truthfully, is a buzzword. It's not really, you can't measure stopping power. That's not you're not physically going to stop somebody from moving forward with a bullet. It's buzzword stuff. So, that also then leads into, another stereotype of dainty women need 380. 380 is, it's softer, it's all this other stuff. And while that is true, we'll link back to that. So to answer, let me make sure I'm answering your question properly. 380 so let's start with this. Is 380 sufficient for self-defense? Yes. So bullet technology over the last, 20, 30, 40 years has exponentially increased. We have, modern bonded bullets. We have material science that is providing rounds that generate sufficient and more lethal wound channels, other things like that, not needing as much energy. And so modern 380 is absolutely sufficient to do that. And it's an energy transfer, it's a wound channel deal, on and on and on. And a good example of doing that, really, like with energy transfer, it's the equivalent of if I stepped out in the street and I got hit by a motorcycle doing 60. Would it hurt? Yes. Would it kill me? Potentially. Would, cause devastating injury? Almost certainly. Versus if I step out in the street and get hit by a Honda Civic. Again, a lot of the same outcomes. Honda Civic has a little more mass, so it's going to potentially hurt me more, but you absolutely can get run over by a motorcycle and get devastated. So it's kind of that is a way I would look at that. Is it the biggest, fastest race car out there? No, but it will absolutely get the job done. Would I trust a 380 with my wife? Absolutely. Modern bullet technology has kind of made the caliber argument as far as self-defense goes irrelevant, because they all generate pretty sizable, pretty decent wounding channels. Next part of the question. Does 380 allow for easier follow-up shots? So from a physics standpoint, right, 380 has less mass, less powder. The guns are generally smaller and weigh less. So your trade-off there is I'm producing less energy going this way, but I have less mass to counteract it coming this way versus a 9mm, which is going to be slightly bigger. More energy going this way, slightly more mass reacting against that energy. Does 380 recoil less? Yes. I would say yes in an overall. But that's, again, a but. This is one of those misconceptions where, guys go out and say, oh, my lady needs a little bitty gun. She's not real big, blah, blah, blah. She can't hold on to it, other stuff like that. Your trade-off, less gun equals more recoil, right? If I take the same size gun and put 9mm in it, it's going to recoil. If I put 380 in that same gun, it's going to recoil less. But if I shrink the gun in that process, fire 9mm through the bigger one, 380 through the smaller one, they may recoil about the same. And truth be told, felt recoil is going to be negligible. It's still going to recoil. You're still going to get front sight rise and back down and all this other stuff. Probably if you mathematically calculated it all out, I would, if I was a betting man, and I usually am, 380 would probably math with less recoil. Are you going to be able to perceive that recoil? Well, that depends on a lot of things. How confident are you as a shooter? Your fundamentals of holding the pistol, a lot of different stuff like that, right? Like there are a lot of people that drive 9mm and you don't really see any recoil out of it because they're managing that pistol properly. So you put a 380 in their hands and it's going to be the same outcome. 9mm and 380 can both be managed. They are both manageable calibers. But from like just a unproven thought process of general physics that I'm not very good at, it seems like the 380 would recoil less just through sheer, like I said, physics. But I think that's one of those deals you need to bring her out. You let her shoot both 9mm and 380 and let her decide for herself. But that kind of covers that one. I'm trying not to dig on those. 9mm with a comp accomplished the same goal. Potentially. Some of those roses are slide ported and have some recoil mitigation with that. Now, here my one caveat I will say about slide porting or slide comps or whatever you want to call them is compensators are directly influenced by the ammo you put through them. So that is an efficiency gain or a efficiency game, right? If I'm running regular 9mm through it, I may see a 5% recoil reduction or whatever. Versus if I put like a 124 plus P super high pressure, I may see a 25% reduction, but I'm also gaining overall recoil in the same sense. So for those ports to really do their job, you have to shoot hotter stuff through it, but the hotter stuff recoils more inherently, so you find yourself relatively at the same point as if you didn't have it shooting regular ammo to begin with. So that is something, again, that's one of those deals you have to try it. I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face about it, but it won't really do you any good. And it sounds like a suck out answer that I'm like, oh, just come try it. Like I can't give you the answer. I'm trying, but that is the best case, especially for somebody looking to purchase something. You're going to spend your hard-earned money on it. I want you to be as well informed as you can. So, for the 380 argument, absolutely. I mean, 380 will kill it. 380 ammo costs more. That's a trade-off too. You got to think about that. Now, granted, most people aren't shooting tons and tons of defensive rounds, but even the ball rounds, they do cost more. So practice is going to cost you more. So in my opinion, I always tell people to get 9mm just because it's plentiful, it's easy, and you can go from there. 380, if you really want 380, it'll absolutely do it. It will absolutely work. So roll with it. But I would say try it. Try before you buy. That's why gun ranges rent guns and different stuff like that. So, Brian, thank you so much for your questions. It's actually kind of cool. I was a little bit nervous answering those, so that's my whole preface is this is one man's opinion with haphazard statistics at best. So don't take it as gospel, but it is what it is. Those of you that click through to the end of this, they were like skipping for the answers. The short answers are that I gave. Get a short 300 blackout because they look cool, and your efficiency change isn't really that much. And 380 is absolutely good enough. But try before you buy. So, everybody else, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining as always. I know it was a little bit shorter one. In the future, if you ever have any questions, shoot us Facebook, Instagram, message, direct it to podcast stuff, and I will try my best to not ramble too long and butcher the answer. And you can get my opinion, which, whatever that's worth, which isn't really much, but it's free. So whatever. Thank you guys for stopping by. No, not stopping, clicking. Check out all the training stuff and everything else below us. There's a lot of good stuff. Last but not least, Aiming for Miracles is coming up. Like, it's right around the corner. By the time you guys are seeing this, it's probably only 15, 20 days away. So if you're going to register, you need to do it. It's down below me. Call them. It's a great time. So thank you guys as always. Can't wait to see you come in. Till next time.